Hello and welcome to Module 3 Smart Board Training video, where we're dealing with images and how to add them to Smart Notebook and manipulate them in various ways. Let's take a look at our learning targets. In Smart Notebook, I can add an image I have saved on a computer, so an image that you already have that you'd like to use. I can add an image that I found on the internet, that would be like from a Google search. I can add a screenshot. Now a screenshot is nothing but taking something that you see on your computer screen and deciding that you want to incorporate that into your presentation and basically snipping it and pasting it into Smart Notebook. I can add an image from the gallery, and the gallery is part of Smart Notebook. It's a pretty huge resource of graphics and images that you can use. I can change the transparency of an image. That's to show what's behind it, if there's content that's behind an image that I'd like to see. I can make the background of an image transparent. You know, this is helpful if you have an image that has a black background, for example, and you'd like to have it float in the white space a little better. You can actually get rid of that black background and change it to transparent, so it will look better on that white background or whatever color background you decide. I can order pen input, text, and images so what I want is on top. You know, we've dealt with how to add pen and how to add text, and sometimes you'll want that input to be sitting on top of an image. So we'll make sure that it doesn't go the other way, and you can definitely sort out which is on top. I can group and ungroup images. We saw grouping of text and grouping of images plus a combination of them, and of course you can group images with each other and group images with text and pen input as well. I can group and ungroup images with text and pen input. Okay, a little redundant now. I can crop an image using the mask tool. Now this is very handy because you might throw an image into Smart Notebook but decide you only want a portion of it. Smart Notebook does allow you to basically crop it. It's called masking. Crop that image right there in the notebook. I can emphasize a portion of an image with the magic pen. We briefly mentioned the magic pen last module. We basically just saw that it was disappearing ink. Well, it's got a couple other functions when it comes to images. They're pretty useful. I can lock images, pen input, and text into place. We haven't done that at all where, this would be an example of this text is locked so I don't accidentally move it. This arrow is actually locked vertically so I don't move it all around. It's just going up and down kind of like an elevator. So we'll see how to do that. I can delete images. Spoiler alert, it's the same exact thing as deleting text. I can save images and pages in My Content, and that's a section of the gallery within Smart Notebook, so you can bring things up that you'll want to use again. And I can back up my content. As your content gets built up, it becomes pretty valuable, so you don't want to lose that. There's a way to back that up to an external drive in case your computer bites the dust. Let's add an image that I have saved onto my computer. So I'm going to make a new page. Remember, that's the plus sign with the page behind it. I'm going to go to Insert, the fourth menu option above, and then go to Picture, the third thing down. Now it'll bring up a box where I can find my file. Remember, this can be anywhere on your PC. Mine happens to be on desktop, so I don't have too far to hunt for it. So I can select it and hit Open, or I can just double click it, double tap it, and if it's big like this image is, it'll give you a message about optimizing. I always go ahead and say optimize and see if it looks okay. It will just lead to a smaller file size, which will help it run a little smoother. So the image came through fine. It looks a little big, so I'm going to just take it and drag it. Remember, just like text, just like pen, I can move it all around just by touching on it and holding it and dragging it around. So it's got some of the same properties as text and pen input as well. With this handle at the lower right corner, I can change the size of it. With this circle up top, the green circle, I can rotate it if I'd like to have it be a little off like this. And the drop-down box in the corner, also similar to how we had the drop-down box in text boxes and selected pen input, gives me all kinds of options that we'll talk about. So that was one way to add an image. Let's go through all three because people probably prefer different ways. I'm just going to go ahead and add another blank page and go from there. Now I'm going to make this smaller but not too small. And notice I can take this image that's sitting on my desktop, or it could be sitting in any folder, and just drag it on over to the blank space. It'll ask me that same question, but there we have it. And notice this is also possible, the pinch to zoom gesture that kind of carries over from our phones and tablets. So that's another way. Let's add it the third way. The third way would be to just take your image and copy it. Now, I'm going to click this button here. It's the first of the three there. It's got a little picture of a mouse on it. If you look closely, there's an arrow pointing to the right button of that mouse. So that means if I press this, the next click of the screen will get treated as a right click. So if I right click on this, that would be a right click of the mouse on the computer. I can copy that, and then if I right click, again I'll hit that button so the next input is a right click. I can right click and just paste it right on to my page. Again, I'll optimize it, and there we have it again. Again, I could shrink it down with that bottom right handle, or I could use the pinch to zoom, and of course the other gestures carry over. Okay, now let's add an image from an online source, something that I find on the internet. I will add a new page, that's the green circle. Go to the almighty Google and do a search for something I'm looking for. Go to images, and let's see, I like this guy. So I could take it from here, but I like to view image to get the biggest possible resolution so it comes through. Now I can pull off that drag move where I just take it down to notebook, drag it up, let go, and the kitten appears, and there is the image. Another way to do it is the old copy paste. So new blank page there. Friendly reminder, here's my page sorter of the pages that we've built up so far. And let's go back to the cat. Right click, remember that is if you're on the board, hit that first of three buttons there. Tap, go to copy image. And then here I can do another right click and paste. And there's my cat again. Realize I could have also done edit, paste to do the same exact thing. Now when it comes to images grabbed from the internet, it's always a good idea to give credit to where that image came from. So I like to just take the address. Let's see, I can copy that. And I can, let's see, we do the edit paste here just to do it a different way. And then I tend to just put that down towards the bottom somewhere just to make sure that I'm not violating any copyright rules. Now the next kind of image I'd like to show you how to add is a screenshot. There are a couple different ways to do it. Let's, for example, do a screenshot of the Smart Notebook icon. Now I want to show you a Windows application. This is actually baked into Windows called the snipping tool. Now, the way I find it, if I don't see it on my smart screen, is just to start typing snipping tool, and it should come up as a search. Now, I recommend pinning it to taskbar. That's why you saw it down there. It's also pinned to start. That's why it says unpinned for me, because I pinned it in both places. It's something I end up using a lot. So basically, I can get to it from there, but I've got a shortcut there, so it's also able to be opened from there. I wanted to do a new snip, so I'll hit new. And similar to in Smart Notebook where I drag a box across the diagonal of what I want, notice it comes up in its own window. I have a few options here, a bit of drawing on and editing and highlighting options, but I can also just save it or copy it. For these purposes, it's probably best to just hit this copy button. It looks like two pages on top of each other that look the same. So it's copied now, and I'll go back here, open up a new page with that green plus circle, and go ahead and right click and paste it. So it should pop up there, and I can manipulate it just like any other image. Let me show you the other way to snip something off a page or off your screen. This is actually part of the Smart Notebook software. So if I touch this tiny little triangle, it will bring up the icons that live in this taskbar. And the white circle with the blue square, that's the Smart menu that I can get all kinds of features. But I want to point out the screen capture toolbar here. If I hit that, it's a similar box that comes up with the snipping tool. I'll go ahead and get rid of this. No, I don't need to save it. A few more options actually though. I can snip a box that I draw, I can snip a whole window, I can snip the whole screen, or I can freeform draw a box and snip that. So why don't I try that just for fun? Let's see if it'll let me. And of course it's not the prettiest, but one thing that's nice is as soon as I finish the drawing, it went automatically to Notebook. And again, my edges aren't that great, but that's an example of a freeform snip from the screen. I wanted to quick show off how to snip a box shape using the SMART screen capture toolbar. Remember, I opened that by hitting the little triangle, hitting the white and blue icon there, and then it's the screen capture toolbar. It's still up from when we used it before. So let me try to grab the same thing. I'm going to use the first button here. It's a camera with a box and a dotted line here. So now it's ready. Now, very similar to the window snipping tool, I just go from one corner to the opposite in a diagonal, and then let go. And since it's baked into SMART, it's the one that automatically creates a new page with what I snipped on there. So there's the one I just did. There's the one I did with the freeform snip using the SMART screen capture toolbar. And there's the one that I did using the Windows snipping tool. So it's really just a preference, whichever works better for you. Now let's see how to add images from the gallery. Now the gallery is something that is in SMART Notebook. It's the second tab here, so something we haven't explored yet. Now under the second tab, I just click it and we see a few different categories of content. So first off, let's look at the gallery essentials. That's what's highlighted first. And we can see just within that there's 5,081 pictures, so it's almost a little overwhelming. But you can start to browse as I expand these folders. They break the content into different content areas, and then even within that, we get a little more specific. So it's definitely worth just kind of browsing around and seeing what kind of stuff they have, or you could just go for a search. I mean, I could just type in right here something like, let's see, Shakespeare maybe, and of course things are way narrowed down. We see really just one picture. There he is. So when you find what you want, you just take him, press and drag over, and that would be a press of the mouse and dragging over if you're on your PC. Once he's there, he does all the same things as any other image does. So it's pretty straightforward. So let's drag something else under here. Let's get rid of the search, clear that out, and let's see. So let me just start kind of browsing. And I mean, if I can drag this over to kind of get a bigger view of it. But as you can see, it's pretty overwhelming, all the things that are in there. So why not a panda? Shakespeare and a panda. So you can see anything that I want from here, I just take and drag over. Now let's talk about transparency of an image. It's actually two things to think about when it comes to transparency. One is making the whole image transparent. For example, if I select this panda and I go over to the Properties tab, basically the only, besides Object Animation, which we will get into in another module, the only option under Fill Effects is Object Transparency. So notice it just kind of lightens up the panda, and we can see that you can basically see through him. Also good for if you want to make a whole image a background, and you don't want it to be so striking because there's text or other writing on top. It can be good to just lower that transparency so what you see on top is more visible. Now, there's also background transparency. This Shakespeare here I pulled from the internet, and it looked like it had a transparent background, but it turns out it's got a white background. So you can see, we can, as we go over the other two images, it's kind of a distracting effect of having those corners cutting in to those images. So if I tap on that picture and use my drop down from that arrow in the upper right, I go to Set Image Transparency. Now realize this is the just the background. It says click areas of the picture to make them transparent. Undo the selection by clicking again So I really want to just click on the background, and we can see since it was all white, now that turned to purple, which means it's invisible, it's transparent completely. So if I click OK, now I get that same kind of effect where it just looks a little cleaner. I don't see those white corners coming into the other images. So it can be handy if you pop a picture in from the internet and then you discover, sometimes it's got a black background or a white background, and you can just get rid of that again by going to this set transparency and then just tapping on the background, and it cleared it out there. Okay, now let's talk about ordering. Now, ordering means in Smart Notebook terms, what is on top, what is on the bottom. Basically, as you start adding different objects into your page, the very first thing you add is going to be on the bottom. You add another thing that would be on top of that. You add another thing that would be on top of that. And that just means when they intersect, what overlaps what. So basically, this can lead to some issues. For example, you obviously want text to be on top of any image. So if I select that text just by tapping on it, go down to my upper right drop-down arrow, and then select the order menu, I can bring that text to the front. Now, you'll notice some other options there. For example, I want to bring this writing here that we can barely see to the front as well. But another way to go is select this guy, again, my order menu, and notice I can also send to back. So you can bring things to the front, you can send to the back, you can bring forward or send backward just one layer, but I might as well just send him all the way back, and then we can see this writing. Again, I can, to see the rest of that writing, send that all the way back, but let's practice sending this one forward. So order, bring to front, and now we start seeing. Let's bring that panda to front, order, bring to front, and there he is. So if something is covering up something else, that's the way to solve that problem. Okay, let's talk about how to group and ungroup images with each other as well as with pen input and text. For example, if I just love the fact that the panda and Shakespeare were in those two positions and I wanted them to act as one, well, and I come back to, oh, that's actually grabbing the image. I've got to find some white space and draw that diagonal across both things that I want to select. And notice it did just select these two images, so I know that these are the two images that I'm aiming to group together. So either one of the drop-down boxes is fine, and I go to group, and then group, and now they act as one image. That also works with text. Notice if I wanted to add the source of where I got this Shakespeare image, I wanted to add that to the image itself. Let's see if that got it. Nope, that didn't get it. Basically, again, we have to find some white space. And okay, so I've got that, and then got that. Now we see two things selected. So drop down, group, group. Now these are all three, the text and these two images are acting as one. Works with pen as well. If I wanted this to be permanently sitting on top of Shakespeare like that, I'm gonna, whoops, going to draw a box around the two. Remember, when I say draw a box around it, I mean go diagonally from one corner to the other, and then group, and now there is one. Now, with either of these things, I can ungroup by just going the opposite. So it's selected, it's ungrouped. Now, they're separate. I'll do this one real quick. Group and ungroup. And notice that just took the last thing I did and made those separate. Now if I take panda and Shakespeare, ungroup those, group, ungroup, now everybody's doing their own thing now. Let's talk about how to crop an image, which in Smart Notebook is called masking an image, because you're technically just taking one portion of an image and making the rest of it invisible. So I'm going to add a new page, and I've done a Google search for the Statue of Liberty. So I'm going to right-click, copy that image, paste that image right onto my blank page. We'll do optimize. And now imagine that I only wanted like a cropped image of her head. So I'm going to make sure my picture is selected, which it is because I see the dotted blue line. The upper right arrow gets me to that menu, and I select mask. And so mask brings up a box within that that I can alter. Now, notice this image is huge, so I'm going to scroll down on this end because I need to get a handle of this. Either works. So we'll bring it straight up. And then now I'll drag and just kind of get it the way I want it. And then basically just tap off of the image. So there's a little bit of white space here. I'll tap that. And now it seems as though my image is smaller. If you ever wanted to get it back, you could just unmask or edit mask to change. The whole image is still there in memory, but it's acting as if it's just this image here. All right, now let's bring back up that magic pen that we saw in the last module, where all we know now is that it creates disappearing ink. Well, it does a couple of interesting things with images that I'd like to show you. So imagine instead of cropping this thing, I did want to see the whole thing. So I'm going to unmask it, maybe resize it because it's so huge. So that's dragging that handle in. Okay, now it's a better size. We'll say that's about good. And imagine I wanted to draw attention to a certain aspect of this image. So I'm in my pens, and I go to the magic pen. Now there's two things that it does besides the disappearing ink. Remember the silly thing, the trick you can play on your students is that in magic ink that will eventually disappear. But when it comes to an image, if I draw a circle around something, notice it just draws attention to that circle. I can just hit the X to get out of there, but again, just a circle, and it attempts to just use whatever circle or oval that I drew and darken out the rest and highlight what's in the circle. Now, another thing you can do is draw a box around an image, and it will actually zoom in that image. So again, a couple of neat tricks to draw attention to a certain aspect of an image. Really great for these huge detailed pieces of art or images with lots of detail that you want to focus specific attention to one exact place. Okay, now let's talk about how to lock objects into place if you want them not to move at all, if you hit them accidentally, or if you want them to have limited movement. I'm actually going to bring back up our very first slide, the learning target slide, because it really came in handy for that. So go to selector mode. Always make sure that's the arrow in one place or another that's selected. And notice if I accidentally try to whoops, okay. Separate gesture to go through pages. But notice if I touch this thing, it's not moving as it typically would. Basically because I've got it locked. Notice instead of an arrow, you see a little padlock there. So I'm going to go ahead and unlock to show you the difference. Now it's unlocked and it's free to move, and maybe I would accidentally grab that instead of grab the arrow and find myself kind of fumbling there. So once I have something and I don't want it to move, I want to lock it into place just to make sure I don't accidentally move it. So I go open that menu from the drop-down box and lock, and then we do get all these options. The first option is just lock in place, and then again it's frozen there, won't move even if I drag my finger across it. Now notice this guy, he's locked in a different way. I can move him, but I can't move him horizontally. I can just move it up and down vertically. So now let me unlock it to show you how it started, and that was just free flowing, which works fine. You can do a free flowing arrow, but if again you wanted to add a little assurance that it wasn't going to fly away on you, you can select the object, drop that arrow down, go to lock, and this one I did allow vertical move. So that means it's locked partially. I can move it up and down this way, but I can't go side to side. In order to delete it or manipulate it any further, I'd have to unlock it there. So notice the options. There are lock in place, like we did the text, allow vertical move like the arrow, allow horizontal move, allow move. Now that seems kind of odd, but that just means, well, I can move it all around, but it's not going to be easy to delete it. So if you've got stuff that's being manipulated by students and you want to just give one extra assurance that it won't just get deleted accidentally. If it's locked, well, it would take some steps to actually get it to delete, which is just like I would do to text. Okay, now speaking of deleting, let me advance screens here. Anytime you want to delete an image, that's just selecting the image, going to the upper right corner drop-down box, and delete. Remember, that's the exact same way to delete text. It's pretty much the exact same way to delete any object, except, well, even writing. Writing, you can of course use an eraser, but I do believe I can delete that as well. So basically you can delete any object in that way. Now maybe I've got something neat that I know I want to use over and over again in various lessons. The one thing is to save the whole lesson and it'll be exactly the way you left it. But another thing is to, let me go back to our learning targets. Maybe I just really love this arrow because I've just found it useful in pointing out learning targets, and it's something that I made. So I want to save it in my content, in my gallery. So basically I just take it and drag it over to the gallery and then drop it into the first menu item, my content. And notice I've just got limited things in my content, but this thing can grow and grow and grow. You can add pictures, you can add whole pages to your gallery. So let's try that. Just take a page, and notice each page also has a drop-down column. So if the very last menu item is add page to gallery, well, we should see now a new heading, notebook files and pages, and we can see that that page has been added. Now, remember, anytime I want to bring up this stuff in any of my lessons, I can just go to the gallery and to my content, and it's got anything that I've saved there. Now, along with regular backup of your files in general, as your content in your gallery starts to build, it becomes pretty valuable, and you probably want to back that up periodically. So I'm, again, in the Gallery tab, that's the second one. In my content, I can drop down the menu and go to Export as Collection File. Now, once I do that, I need to name it and decide where it's going to go. So we'll just say this content and save. And that way, if your computer ever completely croaks, you have not lost your content at all. The things that you like to bring up time and time again in various lessons will be there. You would just, on a fresh install, come back and do add to my content, and then basically find the file that you had backed up. We can see it right here. Okay, so that does complete Module 3. We have hit all the learning targets in order this time, but please feel free to get in touch with me for any extra help. I'd be glad to meet with you.